Health insurance. It's one of your main concerns when finding and keeping a job. But what happens when the only insurance available to you refuses to cover a basic necessity?
That's the cause for thousands of church and BYU employees as well as students. And Universe Live reporter Amy Griffin is here to tell us all about it.
For employees of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Brigham Young University employees, and BYU students on the student health care plan, there's a gaping hole in their otherwise adequate health insurance, a broad failure to cover birth control. Now, dozens of women are speaking out about their experience. Take a look.
Deseret Mutual Benefit Administrators, or DMBA for short, is the insurance agency which provides health insurance for the more than 16,000 church employees, as well as all students on the university healthcare plan. Despite receiving generally favorable reviews on the majority of its coverage, the omission of birth control strikes a nerve with many.
I kind of feel like I'm being told, like, we don't care about your education, we don't care about your job, you are a baby-making machine.
Here in its policy, you can see the company refuses to cover any method of family planning, including contraception, birth control devices, and sterilization procedures, unless the covered individual meets DMBA's current medical criteria. But just what are those criteria? Well, it's not talked about anywhere in their explanation of benefits or other documentation. And when we called DMBA multiple times today, they couldn't provide the guidelines DMBA nurses use to determine medical necessity. Based on the stories of dozens of women recorded by the Instagram account at DMBA Stories, having conditions such as endometriosis, repeated ectopic pregnancies and miscarriages, severe postpartum depression, or even being told by a doctor that a future pregnancy would result in death may not be good enough reasons to be approved by DMBA.
I have some really delightful health conditions, and I needed a solution to them so I would not be bedridden and miserable for my entire life.
Springer, like many women, was denied coverage for her birth control, which she says is essential to treating her medical conditions. Yet she had to jump through countless hoops to try to get what she needed, a process that took months.
It's hard to feel like you matter and that like your voice and your decisions matter when there are people making decisions for you about your own body.
Many women, upon realizing they can't get essential care, turn to a different source.
Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood.
Sydney Mahotzi worked for the Church Humanitarian Department until recently and has considerable experience with reproductive health care for women worldwide.
Overwhelmingly, when women have universal access to birth control, everything improves. They are better educated. They have a longer lifespan.
For Mahotzi, the problem is glaringly obvious.
Within church employment, we don't see a lot of women in leadership roles.
And that means the people with control over healthcare policies aren't women and may not give as much weight to women-specific issues.
I've been told that, I've been painting the wrong picture of the church, that, if I keep publicizing this, they're not going to be able to recruit and retain women. And so I've kind of been made to feel like the villain.
Mahotzi says it doesn't make sense when put in the perspective of issues the church really cares about, like abortion.
If we want to be pro-life, we have to support universal access to birth control. That's really how you're going to prevent unwanted pregnancies.
The Affordable Care Act, popularly known as Obamacare, requires health insurance providers to pay for contraceptives. So why is DMBA allowed to refuse to pay? The answer comes at least in part due to a 2014 Supreme Court case ruling, Burwell v. Hobby Lobby, where the court ruled that employers are not required to cover birth control if it interferes with the company's religious values under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. In the case, Hobby Lobby and other employers felt that several required contraceptives were effectively facilitating abortion. The court allowed Hobby Lobby and other similar employers to grandfather in their medical plans, while regular secular employers still had to cover family planning options. DMBA is one of these grandfathered plans, despite the fact that the prescription management company it contracts with, Magellan Health, is happy to approve most birth control options. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has no formal objection to birth control. In fact, the church's official stance is that the baby decision is a private matter for the husband and wife.
The DMBA Stories account has been helping to bring the stories of countless affected women to the public. Springer believes that no one is listening.
Is that actually reaching the policymakers? And if it is, do they even care? Probably not, is my guess, or else I think we'd see change at this point.
Fountain sees it as an issue of faith and believes that the birth control exclusion parallels the biblical story of the woman with an issue of blood, who many historians believe may have had a medical condition related to her menstrual cycle. Fountain expects the church to step up as she believes Christ would have and help heal the struggling women.
That's such a great example to me of Christ reaching out to women and defying societal norms of the time and saying, no, like, I'm going to help you. And I don't care what society says, like, you're a daughter of God, and like, I love you, and let me heal you.
The women all express a similar hope for the future of the healthcare policy.
I hope someone will listen and say, you know what, she's right. This isn't Christ-like, and this needs to change. And this isn't, it's okay to admit mistakes. This is a gospel of repentance.
The movement continues to put pressure on DMBA to change their policy and cover what they say is an essential part of women's healthcare. To read more stories or submit your own, visit @DMBA_stories on Instagram. I'm Amy Griffin, reporting for Universe Live in Provo.